Hey now, cats, we're back again this week on the Balls From Ellwood Show. And with me this week, this person needs little introduction. Not only is this person a not once, not twice, but three-time Emmy nominee for his work on The Kids in the Hall, he's a filmmaker, a director, a comedy writer, a teacher, a comedy teacher, one half of the famously gay punk band Mouth Congress, and the man people has wanted to touch for decades. You want to touch him? I want to touch him. The man, the myth, the legend. Let's give it up for my guest this week, Paul Bellini. How you doing?
Oh, your name is Mike, right?
Yeah, but everyone calls me Balls. But,
Hey, balls.
I've been calling into the reason being is I've been a regular caller on the Howard Stern show for like probably 13 years now.
Your balls.
Yes, that's me.
Okay.
So yeah, if you ever heard Balls on there, that's me. I've been calling.
Well,
for
I
13
listen
years.
to every Stern episode. I got my Sirius subscription. I listen constantly. So
Holy
really,
shit, man! I didn't know you were a Stern fan. That's amazing.
I would say at least 15 years.
Wow. So I mean, yeah, I've had about over 500 calls. I've been on Howard TV several times.
Cool.
But yeah, people wonder why they call me Balls. That's why. So I mean, wow, that's amazing. It's nice to meet a fellow fan. But
Yeah.
oh, shit, we could talk about that later though, because I could talk your ear off about Howard all day long. But
Oh, yeah.
I want to actually hear about you. Can you tell me a little bit about where you grew up?
Well, I grew up in Northern Ontario in Canada in a town called Timmins, which most people know as the hometown of Shania Twain, right?
Ah,
So Shania is a little younger than me, about 5 or 6 years younger. So my career had a bit of a head start. Now, a lot of hockey players come from Timmins, but
mhm.
very few actors or comedians. So I was enjoying that little taste of fame that I got from early Kids in the Hall. And then, of course, Shania comes along and blew me out of the water. So now I'm not even the most second famous person from Timmins. So there you go.
Can you tell me a little about your formative years? Did you always want to be a writer? Did you always want to be in comedy? Were you interested in that when you were younger? And was your parents supportive of that?
Well, my parents were always supportive. God bless them. They were the best. But they used to let my uncle babysit me, and he was only 7 years older. And he'd come over. He wanted to watch the hockey game. So he would put me in the corner with some pencil crayons and foolscap. And he would say, make a magazine. So
Mm.
I would spend hours designing the cover of the magazine and the ads and creating copy. I'd spend hours making these. I wish I still had them. Um, these little magazines I did when I was probably 7, 8 years old. Um, so right from the beginning, it wasn't just writing, it was everything that went with it. It was the publishing, it was photography, filmmaking, recording. My enthusiasm for that stuff was there from the very beginning, and it's never waned.
Well, obviously you've been in the like comedy and all that since you were a kid. Can you name some influences that shaped you not only as a writer but as somebody that knows what in fact funny is?
Well, you know what? My favorite comedians growing up were Dean Martin and Jack Benny, oddly enough. And a lot of people don't even consider Dean Martin a comedian, but his TV show was hugely influential because it took place on a set that looked like his living room. So right away there was a comfort level. Plus he'd pretend to be drunk and badly rehearsed. I love that. I love that breaking the fourth wall. To me, he was like maybe the celebrity. Jack Benny, on the other hand, had that great timing and the deadpan voice and face, and he was slightly gayish. So
Mhm.
I definitely adapted Jack Benny's mannerisms to my persona. Um, I guess the only other one might be Beatrice Arthur because Maud was huge when I was a
Oh,
teenager. And again, the timing, the voice, the intonation, the delivery, she could land a joke every time. So in terms of comedy, I'd have to say those three.
oh, those are great choices. And anybody that was a naysayer of Dean Martin not being a comedian, I mean, I used to love seeing those roasts that he would do, and I thought he was hysterical on those. I mean,
Fantastic.
and I love. I'm a big Golden Girls fan, so of course I love B. Arthur. Maud was amazing, but
You know what's interesting? Um, it's only been in recent years that I've spent a lot of time doing research with Marx Brothers, Chaplin, and Keaton.
Hmm.
Will Johnny come lately? But the more you watch that, the more you realize most modern comedy comes from those three sources.
Oh yeah, I mean it's amazing to see like where the roots of that thing that comes and how far that it's ingrained itself in things today. I think that's super duper interesting. I want to ask you, do you have a specific routine that you do when you're sitting down to prepare to write? Like where do you pull and where do you pull that inspiration from? Like how do you make something funny?
Okay, well, I usually when it comes to writing comedy, I was almost always write with Scott Thompson. We went to university together. We were on the same student newspaper. We made short films. We started our band about 3 months before he joined the Kids in the Hall. So we had always had this strong affinity to work together and to create. I mean, we're both gay men, and we definitely shared a vision, I think, even though we're very different types of people. And our preparation is to smoke a big joint, basically, and then sit there and talk about some current issue that really irritates us and how to approach it comedically. So that was often our inspiration. Sometimes you're just creating a madcap character and finding a way for them to live in a scene. There's all different ways to make comedy. There's no one way when it comes to comedy writing. But basically, I think for us, it was that. It was like the relaxation that comes from a little bit of pot smoking or a couple of scotches, and then the irritation with social things, things that bother us that we need to address. That was always, I think, how we basically went at our work.
Hmm. Well, what do you find easier, writing, directing, or performing in front of an audience?
Well, I'm a writer first, so it's the easiest and it's the most comfortable and the most natural. Um, Performing, I was never really a performer. I was kind of forced into it. I have to think about what I'm doing. There's no natural capacity. Um, I'm obviously more comfortable when I know what I'm doing. Like if I know my lines and I feel prepared and the costumes fit. I've never been high on stage.
Hmm.
Two things I would never do: drive a car and on stage are two things I have to do with an absolutely clear, lucid mind. Um, because like for me, like I said, I'm not that natural on stage. And directing, I'm just kind of learning how to do that now. I think I'm better at making choices after the fact. It's not some like when I shoot something, I'll shoot in a kind of haphazard fashion, but I'll shoot a lot. And then when it comes to edit, I'll find the things that work. So again, that editing, film editing is a lot like writing, right? Whereas directing is a lot like performing. So my comfort fit is always with things like editing. It's like about processing a material, you know?
Yeah. Do you feel in this age where comedians get so much shit for, essentially telling jokes and doing their job in this day and age?
Mm.
Do you feel like there's anything that is in fact not that shouldn't be able to be made fun of or to make a joke about? You think
Oh,
that
there are lots of things you can't or shouldn't make fun of, obviously. I'm not one of those. I'm not a stand-up, so I don't have that too soon instinct. Um, what bothers me, and this really hit me this week because I was going through some Apple News, and it's like this comedian you've never heard of blasts Ricky Gervais for his new Netflix special. And I'm thinking, I've fucking had it with comedians attacking other comedians. That's where I draw the line. And I'm looking, thinking, maybe this guy's funny, but I don't give a shit. He should just shut the fuck up.
yeah.
Sorry, I'm losing it because I really hate comedians attacking other comedians. I just do. That said, there are many times when I think comedians cross the line, but let the audience tell them that. They don't need some bullshit on fucking Apple News. You know what I mean? Sorry.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Like I get so frustrated with it seems like we're in this age where everybody's so sensitive that you can't even be a comedian or have fun
Okay, listen though.
active to
I
the
think
society
people
anymore.
have always been sensitive. This is not sensitivity is not new. It's the platform for voicing it. Any moron can go on Twitter or Instagram and go meh, 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 right? Any moron.
That's a good point.
Like 20 years ago, no one had that option. All you could do is complain to your friends. Well, I did think that was funny. Now you can voice that and you can put it out worldwide. So other idiots can agree with you. Also, let's be honest, the trouble with social media is people never look past the headline. Like, there are so many people who make jokes about J.K. Rowling. They don't have an idea of what she's saying, or I mean, I'm not saying you have to agree with her necessarily, but most people don't have a fucking clue what she's actually saying. They just go, "Oh, she's a turf." You know what I mean? Like, there's that instant reaction, and I hate mob mentality. Oh, you got me on a serious day.
Oh, that's totally great. Cause like I get so worked up and passionate about this too, because like I don't think people, I always feel like we should have free speech. Like you said, you made a great point where you don't have to agree with people think, you don't have to agree with people say, but you should surely have the right to say it. And I mean, let people interpret it how it will, I mean,
Well, my generation loathed any kind of censorship because back when I was growing up, if you showed a bare breast on screen, it was a big thing. And it kind of still is, let's be honest. But it was all about free love and about basically kicking back the bourgeois mentality and that post-World War II mentality of propriety. We were a generation that really wanted to upset our parents. Now, the new generation, they don't want to upset their parents at all. They want the love and agreement that comes with agreeing with mommy and daddy's positions. It's a totally different thing.
I almost feel like that might be too much of a good thing too, though, because then you don't ever, I mean, then you don't ever really want to leave the nest and you want to kind of just be there hanging, hanging out with them until you're 50, 60 years old. You don't really want to go out and have life experiences or kind of be your own person. I mean,
my generation couldn't wait to leave home. I planned it like a prison escape. I literally started.
I love my mom to death, but like I couldn't wait to get out either. It had nothing to do with her. I just was excited to go out and begin my life. So I mean, it's just a very different time for sure.
Yeah, I don't think we were as afraid of everything as the new generation is now. Anyway.
Again, I think that might be contribute to, like you were saying, there is so much exposure to social media, and you do have like instructions to pretty much anything you ever have any questions about at your fingertips. I mean, if we had a question on how to do something, you'd have to go to the library and book or talk to your friends. Now you just look at your phone, go on YouTube. How do I replace this? Oh, there it is. So like I wonder if that has any sort of factor to that.
Well, people aren't any smarter for the access of information. I always thought that with the information explosion, that and the what do they call it? The information superhighway. Remember that term back?
Oh yeah, there was the World Wide Web, the information superhighway. It's going to be called so many different things.
Right, everybody's going to be so much smarter. I don't see that.
No, in fact, I almost think like people are desensitized to just how much information is at their disposal. I think they're like spoiled or like, whatever. It's
well, social media is a Pandora's box, and there's no closing it now. So we just have to deal with it.
Well, let me ask you this: as a writer, have you ever faced writer's block, and how did you get over it?
No, I've never had writer's block.
Oh wow!
Because I figure if you're blocked, find another avenue. There's more than one way to get to something, right? And sometimes the blockage comes because you're fixed on an idea or a character or a voice or something. And you got to be smart enough to know it doesn't work. And this is the beauty of working with comedians, because they are constantly performing the writing to find out what works for audiences. So comedy writing is the really great kind of writing because you're never isolated. You're always testing the material all the way through. So no, writer's block is not an issue for me.
That's incredible. Let me ask you this: coming up through, when you're growing up and you were doing all these things. I mean, surely, everybody I think at some point has, but surely you've been a victim of prejudice. And how do you deal with closed-minded assholes?
Well, I just ignore. I mean, whatever, whether it was homophobia or somebody making fun of me because I'm Italian or something ridiculous, I couldn't care less. I've got a very thick skin. I don't take insults very readily, or offense. I don't take offense very readily. I kind of couldn't care less about other people's opinions. I know who I am, and I always thought everybody was like that. But people are very much concerned what other people think, and I never could. I remember when I was young, and I found out that some classmates were gossiping about me. I was so flattered, but I also didn't care. I couldn't care what the gossip was or how it would affect me. It just didn't matter.
That's incredible. I went through that growing up, and like I've always kind of felt like, well, if they're picking on me, at least they're leaving somebody else alone, you know. So I mean,
Oh, well, yeah, I don't know about you, but sometimes somebody will make a withering fat remark, and I'm thinking, well, I don't really care. First of all, I've struggled with weight all my life. Right now, I'm
same
on.
here. I get it all the time. In fact, I'm a 45-year-old man. I got it just the other day.
Yeah.
And what cracks me up as a fat guy, being fat, my like people look at you differently, whether people think so or not. But the funniest part about it is like they always tell you, and I'm like I just fucking woke up this morning, and I'm like, holy shit, holy fuck, thanks for letting me know. I would have never known. Like I've been in this body my whole life, so wow, like no fucking shit, you know. I'm like, wow, you really did me a service. Thank you so much. Like,
Years go by, I don't care about my weight, and then all of a sudden this year I decided I didn't want to, I'm 62. I don't want to get much older with that big a gut because I didn't think, I thought it impeded my movement. It exhausts me quickly. And I still want to perform and write. I'm not ready to retire and probably
we
won't.
surely don't want you to, sir.
So I thought I'm going to take Bruce McCullough's advice and get in shape. And part of that is, I had a cousin who lost 80 pounds on a clinical diet, and I did the same thing. And it's only been like 6 weeks, but I'm loving it. I love the fact that I feel lighter. It's so important.
Well, congratulations, that's great.
Thanks.
I actually just watched the documentary Comedy Punks.
Yeah.
I saw that you were responsible for a really good percentage of the early footage from the early shows at the was it Rivoli? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
And well, it said you were the first one to have a camera back in. Did you honestly think that when you were shooting that stuff back then that would become, so iconic right now? And
Yes.
How did you end up meeting the kids, by the way? I mean, you said that you've always known Scott, but like, how did you?
That's a two-pronged question. So I'll start with, I told you earlier my love for any kind of mechanical reproduction. I love VCRs, I love cameras, I love tape recorders. I love anything that can capture a moment, a historical moment. And I played with Super 8 as a kid, but Super 8 is notoriously difficult. Footage comes back, you've spent $30 on a roll that's all murky. Video cameras were mind-blowing to me because you could see exactly what you were getting. So my sister's boyfriend at the time bought a big Canon VHS with, it had like the VHS was on a shoulder pack and the camera had a shoulder mount. I mean, the thing weighed about 40 pounds. He bought it to do wedding videos in the early 80s. So when we started, and he was my guitar player in Mouth Congress. So when we started doing shows, I said, Rob, bring the camera. We got to tape our shows. And then around the same time, Scott was joining the Kids in the Hall. And I said, do you want me to videotape the shows? And Scott loves the idea because he loves to watch himself over and over again. But also it was a learning tool for him because when you watch it, you can see what mistakes you're making and what you get right. Like it's a kind of a good way to improve your game. So, and I love the Kids in the Hall instantly. From the first time I saw them, I thought these are really intelligent guys who have very high standards and are really creative. So they allowed me to videotape the shows. I don't think they cared one way or the other. But in the back of my mind, I was thinking this could be really important in the future. So I've always had that. So all the early Mouth Congress shows were videotaped, which of course, I don't know, you probably haven't seen the Mouth Congress documentary, but there's a ton
Not
of
yet, no.
archival footage in that. And then when they were making Comedy Punks last summer, Nick McKinney, Mark's brother, he remembered me at the gigs with the camera. He said, "What have you got?" And I sent him a list of about 60 things. And he goes, "Please, could we have all of them?"
Oh, wow.
So it worked out really well. You know, I'm just that type. I'm an archivist. I'm a historian. I'm that type, right?
Let me ask you this. Was there anything from that footage that you felt was good that hit the cutting room floor that we didn't see in the documentary?
No, I'll tell you. Well, the thing is, the very early footage of the Rivoli shows, it was hard to watch because the camera was, I mean, we're talking commercial grade cameras from the early 80s and mid 80s. They weren't that good, especially with stage lighting. Sometimes there would be streaks and stuff. The audio was never that good. They really are basically archival footage. They're hard to watch, essentially. Later on, I got a high 8 camera that was a little easy. It was smaller and lighter. It was a lot easier to use. The audio was a little better. It's nothing like now. You have a cell phone that has just amazing quality.
That's crazy.
It kind of, cell phones have killed off the need to buy most cameras. But back then, it just didn't look that great. So I'm glad they used what they used. The only thing in the whole documentary that I was sorry they didn't use more of was Mark McKinney's 30th birthday party, a celebration of Mark. It was one of his friends did it, and it was this whole big thing. They rented a banquet room, and there was like placemat, little, the server, a little with your name on it and stuff. And that was a great event. It was a lot of fun, and I don't think there's any footage from it. But hey, it's a 2-hour movie. You can only put so much.
Can you think of, what's your standout best memory from back then? And is there any that was like less than savory?
Jeez, I don't even know how to answer that. I'll tell you, once the whole Lorne Michaels thing started and we were meeting celebrities and shit, that was pretty exciting from a hick from Timmins.
Who was the nicest celebrity you met through that process?
Scott and I went to dinner at Pee Wee Herman's house soon after.
Oh my God, it's amazing. I actually have a friend that owns a restaurant. He's actually really good friends with Paul Rubens.
Well, we watched his show throughout the 80s, and then that arrest happened, about 91 or 92.
And talk about like a big deal overnight. Seriously. I always thought he got a horrible rap for that.
He really did, but I think it was devastating to him. But there was just the three of us. And he made a cilantro salad and pizza. And he had one of those big chairs that massage you.
Oh, nice.
It was great. And we watched 3D television commercials.
Oh, cool.
His screen. And then we got in the car and went to visit Allie Willis, the woman who wrote the Friends theme with the Rembrandt.
Wow.
September and a bunch of other songs. Neutron Dance, I think maybe she wrote.
Oh, wow.
So meeting her was fantastic because I thought, oh, so you have a hit record, it buys you a house, And she was like him. She was a kitschy, funky person. That was a great evening, I have to say. It was just me and Thompson, and we had so much fun.
That's amazing. Are you still constantly recognized from the show, and do people still try to touch you?
Well, lately a lot because of the contest, the Paint Bellini contest. They did a giant billboard here in Toronto in Dundas Square, and I went out to see it, and I'm as big as Godzilla. I'm looking up at it thinking this is really trippy. But yeah, I obviously I get a lot of that, may I touch you and stuff. I never hesitate to pose for a picture with a fan.
That's awesome, man. Was it hard being on set, like in just a towel, like all that time?
No, not at all. I have zero capacity for shame or embarrassment. I'm just that type. And from when I started doing it, I got the joke. I never felt that I was the brunt of the joke.
Mhm.
I liked the fact that I didn't have to learn lines, that I could do everything with facial expressions. I thought that was fun. I liked the mystery of the character, that there's no possible backstory. Although later on, Bruce and Mark kind of created that Bellini date thing. Um, so no, it was, and the producers and directors loved it too, because it was the easiest thing to shoot. In a show full of characters and sets, I would come out stripped down in the wings. We'd shoot the damn thing maybe twice. No body makeup, nothing, no lines. You don't even have to mic it. It was so easy to do.
That was great. What's the strangest thing a fan's ever requested from you?
Well, sometimes you get sexual offers
Oh, wow.
and they border on gross. And like, I'm polite enough to not make a big deal about it, but I'm back in my mind, I'm thinking, well, that's rather forward for somebody who doesn't really know who I am.
Has
Um,
there ever been anybody where you're like, hmm?
no. I have to say the temptation is generally zero.
After the kids canceled, did you all keep in touch?
Well, Scott and I, we went to university together. We've been friends since 1978. And we were both teenagers still. We were in our late teens. So he's someone I've known for over 45 years. He's always been in touch with the troupe because he's a member of the troupe. And the kids are unique in that, like much like Python, they've never replaced any of the members.
Mhm.
It was, Python, it was the five of them and Terry Gilliam. And then after Graham Chapman died, they didn't went out and replace them. They just carried on as the five. Kids in the Hall are the same. They've never made, there's no sixth kid in the Hall. And sometimes people
I
go,
don't
oh,
think anybody would ever accept it anyway. I
well,
mean,
when people say that about me, I'm thinking, no, that's not, I'm not at all. I don't do at all what they do. I'm not part of that. That's
you're
a
iconic in and of yourself. I mean,
sure, but I'm a mascot. I'm like Gritty. I'm just a stupid mascot, right?
as that being said, I'm so in love with the brand new season. I've watched it so many times already. I love the way they got you to unearth them from the grave. Do you know where that idea came to be, and like how the show ended up coming back at all? Like what kickstarted the revival after what has it been like 20
Well,
years? Is that correct?
yeah, when we ended the series back in 1995, um, you know, how to end it was a big thing. And one of the writers came up with this idea of what if they're just buried in a mass grave and Bellini dances on their grave? And everybody liked the idea and we shot it and that was it. So when the revival came, I guess, and I wasn't in the room because I actually wasn't a writer on the new season. I just do towel guy. And somebody must have thought, well, they have to be unearthed. I mean, if there's some continuity, and the kids are sticklers for continuity.
Hmm.
So it seemed like a natural thing to put me at a backhoe and a hard hat digging
That's
them up.
so good. That brought such a smile to my face. Do you think we'll see another season? 'Cause it seems like it's been overwhelming. Everybody I know has been loving it.
Um, Again, I'm not in the room. I don't know Amazon executives.
Mhm.
In the old days, we had an office here in Toronto and we had a full staff and everybody was always together. And we always knew all the business. First of all, there'd be like memos lying everywhere. So you could just read, oh, we were doing this. Um, None of that is happening now. In fact, the entire series was written on Zoom because of COVID.
Mhm.
And shooting it was a pain in the ass. Like you had to be sequestered until you were on set and all that stuff, tested repeatedly. Um, So there was no chance for that camaraderie
Mm.
that comes from when we made the first series. So I have no idea what's happening. I like to think that Amazon is happy with it and that they will renew, but who the hell knows?
Let me ask you a couple things before we wrap it up here. I want to ask you some things that are, really just random. What's a fun fact about you that, as a fan, we might not know?
Oh, I don't know. I don't keep much hidden. I guess
have you have you ever encountered old friends that resent your success, and how have you handled it?
well, yeah, that happens. And like my instinct is to always downplay my success because it's so weird. It's not like it took intellect to be the towel guy. That was just something that I just chanced into, right? I just lucked into that. So it's not something. It wasn't even my idea. It was Mark's idea, and then Mark and Bruce write all that. I've never had any input in Towel Guy, which is fine. And I'd rather just do it. Um, I don't know.
What is the best gift anybody's ever given you?
When I was 33, Scott Thompson bought me the Yoko Ono box set. It was
Mhm.
6 CDs, the Ono box, and I still have it and I fetishize it. I was a huge Yoko Ono fan. I think because in the Beatles universe, she was blamed for everything and
Mhm.
she's such an outsider that I gravitated towards Yoko of all people as a kind of the one that I really wanted to know the most about. I've seen three of her art exhibits. Um, I own the box set. I've seen some of the films she made. There's a fact most people don't. I'm a huge Yoko Ono fan. There we
Well, there
go.
we go. Who has given you the most inspiration and support in your career thus far?
Honestly, I'd have to say Scott Thompson.
I had a feeling it might be him. That's
Well, all five of them were great, and Bruce is really great with me. But all four. Like they're just great. They've always kind of taken me under their wing and provided for me. I can't say anything bad about any of them. But Scott's my buddy, and my entire career is shaped around what we do. I love what we do. I think it's important. I think it's high quality. I like the fact that we're still creating. For Mouth Congress this year, we wrote 5 new songs.
I was going to ask you that. Is there ever a chance of perhaps doing like an official tour?
Somebody would have to finance it. We just did this Philadelphia show, and it was expensive because we took our guitar player and our bass player. So you need hotel rooms and flights and all kinds of stuff. Um, I don't know. Like I said, somebody would actually have to invest in that. But the idea of somebody like what Eric Bressler at Philly Mocha did was he made us an offer, and he figured out a way to turn a profit by with the ticket price and everything. We went, we showed the movie, we did an hour-long show, and then we did a meet and greet where you pose for selfies and autograph shit, and it was a really fun night for us as well as our fans. That kind of thing could be arranged, but the promoter would have to make the offer, I guess. So
I got one more question for you. If you could get in a time machine and go back and talk to your younger self, what key advice would you give yourself?
probably lose weight faster and keep it off. I think that's been, for me, it's the one thing that kind of determines and haunts your life in a way. And it's often, I think, the source of my anger and frustration a lot of times. And I wish I had taken care of it in my late teens, early 20s. And I've been on a million diets. At one point in my life, I went down to about 151 pounds. I looked like a stick figure. But that wasn't good, and neither was being too fat. It would be nice to just be some kind of roly-poly in between. And it's hard to achieve that. I wish I had done that when I was there. Kevin lost all his weight before the TV show. Kevin used to be quite large. He's always kept it off.
I met him when he was doing his one-man show in Pittsburgh, and he was skinny bad, and he was such a great guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this, before we close, in this age of chaos and craziness, how do you keep your comedic outlook?
Well, that's something you just don't lose. I mean, even when I was in my deathbed in the Toronto hospital 2 years ago, I still have my sense of humor. I don't think you can shed that. I think if it's in you, it's just always in you, even at the worst times, right?
That's great. Thank you so much for your time. There you have it, cats. Thank you to my guest, the great Paul Bellini from the.
Paul.
Thank you for your time so much. I just thank you for talking to me. Incredible. Where can we keep up with you on the information superhighway and see what you're up to? And in fact,
oh, I'm the worst for social media. I guess I always say my Facebook page, but I never update it or look at it. I don't know. I guess on Kids in the Hall websites, there's lots of kids websites, and sometimes I'll post on those. That's about it.
Okay, well, be sure to keep up with you. Be sure to watch the brand new documentary Comedy Punks with the Kids in the Hall, and go on Amazon Prime and check out the new season of the Kids in the Hall, and you will see the great. Peace and love, sir. Peace and love. It has been an honor. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Great day. Thank you.
All right, bye.
Love you. Peace and love.
Where's my hat? There it is.